Reynolds Fireplace story starts back in about 1831 when pioneer James Reynolds, and that's spelled R-E-N-N-E-L-S, came from Lawrence County, Indiana to Hutton Township in Coles County. The story is that he came by himself to look over the land, found a clearing. It would be about 3 miles east of the 5 Mile House, which still is currently there. He found a clearing and built a simple, easy to build primitive log cabin made out of oak wood trimmed with walnut, absolutely no nails used in it at all, wooden pegs to hold it all together and so forth. And then he and his 2 oldest sons, Henry Leatherman Reynolds and Edmund Reynolds, who were just little boys at the time, quarried this stone from around where the Kelly Cemetery is now. And he used 2 yoke of oxen, hauled the stone to his farm, and he paid an Englishman named Richard Airy to put together this monumental fireplace which still exists. It's a double-faced fireplace, and it stood there in the log cabin from about 1832, is what we say, until the youngest son of James and Polly Reynolds, Joel Jackson Reynolds, donated the cabin. And at first he wasn't going to donate the fireplace because he was going to somehow keep the fireplace. But he donated it to the Sally Lincoln chapter of the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. They actually had it taken apart, log by log and stone by stone, and moved into Charleston. The stones were all numbered so they could be put back together. In fact, you can still see, if you go today to Morton Park, you can see some of the numbers that were painted on the stone so they could get them placed back together in the right place. The stone, when you go to look at it, it's the fireplace hearth area is about 6 feet across. It's a really pretty big fireplace. It's still got the metal equipment in the interior to hang pots from and for cooking. We've been having this Reynolds reunion this August. First Sunday in August will be our 80th reunion, and there's still 3 people living who attended that first one. It's a huge family. I've traced about 10,000 descendants of James Reynolds' mom and dad. And it's amazing, every year at this reunion, we've had people as old as 94 and 96 come from California and Indiana. We've had people from Thailand and Wales. I'm president of the Reynolds reunion, and the late Larry Reynolds was vice president. And Larry was all set to, talk about this as part of this program. And I thought that was great. He had a close interest. I mean, it was his great-grandfather who donated the cabin and the fireplace. At his funeral visitation, one of the things I noticed was a photograph of Larry with, I believe, his older son, David. They were seated in front of the fireplace, and Larry's kind of motioning back, so I'm sure he was telling the story of the fireplace to his son. And, I think that's something that he would want to continue, for the next generations to be telling that story.
Well, my father, Bill McElwee, was born on October 29th, 1926. They were farmers, very simple people, but fun people. And back in the days, they would entertain each other at their home. My grandfather sang, neighbors would come over to the house and sing. So it was a very active musical family, and I think that's where my dad picked up on it. Then around age 10, his father, my grandfather Lowell, gave him a guitar for Christmas, and along with that came 12 lessons, and that's when he really started getting more involved with playing music. After high school, of course, he continued to work on the farm, and then he met a gentleman named Don Stiff. And Don was an accomplished guitarist, and they became a duo, and they started playing dances, and they were playing hoedown, square dances, and round dances. Bill Griffin and Cliff Harrison joined the group, and they continued to play as much as they could. A gentleman entered the band named Dick Schaefer and his brother Virgil Schaefer, and around that time my father and his band started playing with local Mattoon radio station, and they played on and off the station, and they did special entertainment dances for maybe grand openings of businesses or celebrations. So his first big band, and he was influenced by the big band sound as well. So his first band was Don Stiff, Ted Schwartz, Wes Ramsey, John Long, John Murfin, and Harvey O'Hara. And there's photographs of him in the band, and they wore white tuxedos, and they had the bandstand music covers. They played everywhere. They would be booked 2 years in advance. And I remember that people really, really liked them because you could dance to his music. Musicians come and go. And so Dad, there's always a turnaround for one reason or another. And so Dad went over to the Eastern Illinois University Music Department, and he met an instructor over there. And he would go over there and the instructor would help him get band members to come play in his band. And I thought that was a great thing, because you're not only getting accomplished musicians, but you're also giving these kids an opportunity to make money on the weekends and to get some experience in the band. And so Molly, I think it was around 1963, she joined the band. She was the first female to join the band, and then you had all these young college kids involved and playing music. Then Dad's music changed and developed, and the good thing about my father is that he did conform to the times. He did change. When I was a teenager, I would have never thought that I would have heard him play rock and roll. And my dad's band was also the entertainer at the Coles County Fair for the Coles County Fair Queen pageant from 1967 to 2002. And he was the one that sang Miss Coles County, and I'm not going to sing it. Because of his ear for music, I feel that he was able to get the best musicians so that he would have the right sound and the right feel. And because of his ear for music, he could make sure that his music was danceable and enjoyable. So in my eyes, he was definitely an accomplished musician. He set a stage where people could enjoy the music, dance, and have fun, and just forget about things for a few hours every Saturday night. That's my dad. He's never met a stranger.
I think that sports is certainly an integral part of any community, and we've been very fortunate here in Charleston to not only have a great high school program, but when you've got a four-year school like Eastern Illinois that's had a number of athletes that have contributed to the entertainment value of the community and have gone on to have a great sports career. So I think that's definitely worth a story to tell. Let's begin with the Charleston High School graduates. In no particular order, we'll start with basketball. Rex Morgan had a great career at Charleston High School, went on to play at Jacksonville University, which went on to play in an NCAA championship game. Then he was drafted in the second round by the Boston Celtics in 1970, played 2 years with the Celtics. So, you know, Rex reached the ultimate in his career with a professional athlete contract. Baseball, I think the most well-known, obviously, is Marty Patton. Marty was an Eastern grad and played parts of 13 years in the major leagues, and he won 114 games. Not many win 114 games. When you think about it, you're averaging almost 10 wins a year for a number of seasons, and that's really remarkable. In addition, played in an all-star game, pitched in a World Series, had a one-hitter, so it wasn't, you know, again, just a cup of coffee. He had a spectacular major league career. Stan Royer, most recent, in the early 90s, played 4 years with the St. Louis Cardinals, and again, had a nice career. And then Jeff Gossett, NFL punter. You know, I was looking, you know, recently, he punted for a number of teams over, I think, 10 or 11 years, but most of his notoriety was with the Oakland Raiders. He was an all-pro punter with them, and again, had a remarkable career. And then the Eastern connection, again, Marty Patton and Stan Royer and Jeff all played at Eastern. But I think our NFL connections over the last 20 or 25 years We've got two individuals who coached Super Bowl teams from one university, particularly a university our size. Mike Shanahan with the Denver Broncos won two in the late 1990s, and then Sean Payton with the New Orleans Saints just a few years ago. And then, of course, now the most recent connection, Tony Romo and Jimmy Garoppolo. I think anybody that's followed the NFL knows that Tony's had a remarkable career for about the last 12 years with the Cowboys, and Jimmy just starting his with the New England Patriots as the backup for Tom Brady. But again, for a school our size to have two NFL quarterbacks at the same time is significant. So I think that's the story that, again, Charleston, Eastern, what we've produced on the national scene, it certainly has brought a lot of notoriety to the community and to the university.
Carle has been an integral part of the Coles community since the 1980s. First started coming down here doing specialty consultative work, initially at the Link Clinic in Mattoon, and eventually developed its own clinic at the site of where the Whitmer Furniture store was. The Whitmer Furniture apparently had a major fire sometime in the 1980s. And so it was a good place to put a portable building, put it up quickly, and allows us to come in and start not only the specialty work continue, but also start to bring in some other physicians that provided health care for the community. During those early times, it's kind of interesting that one of the first days that they were open, in fact, the Harlan Globetrotter bus was coming through Highway 16 on a gig and stopped off the clinic. One of their members was ill, and kind of made the staff a little bit nervous, but all of a sudden the whole staff was coming in. They very much enjoyed Metal Arc Lemon and some of the other players that were involved. So in 1990, that clinic was started. In 1992, we built a facility for Mattoon Charleston at Lerner Road, and that facility has stayed in place and grown over the period of time to today. We've had, in 2013, we developed a new Hearst building, and we built that around a new model of healthcare on the patient-centered medical home. And in 2015, we've added the Heart and Lung and Heart and Vascular Institute. So I think it's important to know that Carle was developed in 1936 in Urbana, but its mission has been outreach to many communities that are around it. We live here. We are very much part of the Coles community. Our employees, we have about 120 employees that live and work here, and I think we're a significant part of the community.
The Courier started in 1840. It's Charleston's first newspaper. And so they covered the community for many, many years. And in the 1960s, Betty Boyer was a former Courier employee, and she started a new paper called the Daily Times. And it wasn't long after that she bought the Courier, and so the newspapers became the Times Courier. And of course, back in the 60s, that was pretty unusual for a woman to be in a position of authority like that and to be a publisher. And there's a story that she was out front one day of the newspaper, and she was working on flowers and landscaping, so she had her older clothes on, probably had some smudges of dirt on her, and a gentleman came along and asked if the publisher of the newspaper was in. And she said, well, the publisher will be in this afternoon. He said, okay, he would come back. So she finished what she was doing on the landscaping. She went home and got it, cleaned up and got in her nice publisher clothes and went back as the publisher in the publisher's office. And sure enough, that gentleman came back that afternoon and met the publisher. In 1971, the Times Courier and the Mattoon Journal-Gazette were both purchased by Howard Publications. So they became sister papers. And then a few years later, they were bought by Lee Enterprises. And at that time, and of course for most of its history, the Times Courier had been up on the square. And they moved to a storefront closer over to Walmart. and then a couple of years later moved to join with the Journal-Gazette offices. And then after another move, the Times-Courier is now located at the Cross County Mall. So the Journal-Gazette and Times-Courier then became one newspaper in 2011. Some of the top stories over the years have been in 1960 there was a large fire on the square, destroyed several businesses, and it was in the winter when it was super, super cold. And so the firefighters really had a rough time, fighting that, and the buildings were left with a lot of ice and icicles from all the water they used to put out that fire. And that's what the Times-Courier does, is not only chronicles history and what's going on in Charleston, but personal stories and just what's happening with the people of Charleston. We're all carrying on the tradition that Betty Boyer started, and everybody who's along with her, we don't even know their names. We're invested in the community. We're invested in Charleston as a town and the people and their characteristics. And every town is different, and that makes every newspaper different. And we want to reflect what Charleston is like and what makes Charleston different, than other communities.
It was the Charleston Riot of 1864, which happened on one day, March 28th, 1864. It started out with people in the area from Kentucky that had emigrated here to take advantage of the fine farmland that was here. So they were leaning towards the Confederate side, the southern side, and they didn't like Lincoln very much. What happened was the Union soldiers that joined the Union Army, they would come home on 30-day furloughs, and they called the Confederate sympathizers Copperheads. And they would go out in search of some of these guys, and they would make them kneel and take an oath of allegiance to the Union and Lincoln and the Union side, and that caused quite a lot of trouble in the days, months, and weeks preceding March 28th. So it all came to a head on Court Day. There was a Democratic congressman, they called them Peace Democrats. They were in opposition to Lincoln. Lincoln was a Republican, so there was a Democratic congressman that was going to come and give a speech that the Copperheads really wanted to hear. So a lot of Union soldiers came up to the square that day, and they were all drinking. The speech was supposed to take place later in the afternoon. The Copperheads were there to listen to the speech. They were expecting trouble. The Union soldiers were there to keep an eye on the Copperheads. Around 11 o'clock, there was so much discord in the area that they canceled the speech, but there was still a lot of people milling around. Oliver Salee went up to a guy by the name of Nelson Wells. Oliver Salee was a Union soldier, came up to Nelson Wells, asked him, "Hey, are there any Copperheads around?" And Nelson Wells said, "Well, yeah, of course. I'm one of them." And he pulled out a gun and shot. Then Oliver Salee was hit with that gunshot. Some people say nobody really knows for sure, but probably that's what it was. Someone else shot Nelson Wells. They were the first two men killed. After that, the Union soldiers were unarmed. They had left all their rifles at the train station. The Copperheads had stashed rifles nearby under the straw in their wagons and so on and so forth. So they shot about 6 Union soldiers and were finally driven north out of town when some more Union men in the area had rifles, and they drove the guys up out of town, but the majority got away. So, like I say, there were, I believe, 50 men that were captured, and all but 15 of them were released because they couldn't prove that they were involved. Dennis Hanks, he was an old friend of Lincoln, grew up with him. The original riot was March 28, 1864, so 6 months later, Dennis Hanks went there, talked to Lincoln. Lincoln signed a executive order releasing all 15 prisoners on November 4th, 1864, just a few days after Dennis Hanks had been there. Probably before Dennis Hanks came back home to Illinois, Lincoln had signed this executive order. I came across a quote from Lincoln, and I don't believe he was talking about the Charleston riot itself or about his executive order releasing those prisoners, but it was a quote. I want to be remembered as always plucking a thistle and planting a flower where I thought a flower could grow. I think what he was saying with that sort of a quote, at least the spirit of what Lincoln was saying with that quote was, let's move on.
My story kind of starts with my mom because she was a little bit unusual in that she was on the radio in the 50s. She'd go to work and do her broadcast. She had her own show on WEIU, which was very popular in the 50s and 60s. Time went by, and along about 65, a group called the Beatles came out. And my brother, he learned to play the bass. He got him an electric bass. They wanted to be the Beatles. So we didn't have a place for them to practice. Notice I said we, because my mom kind of took care of them. And then we had an idea. Let's get our own place. Let's get a place in town here where we can have our own dances.
I think it evolved into the kids need a place to go, and that's why, and she was in radio. She had connections with WLS and, the bands and all this stuff, and she was good at that. And I think that was good for us at that age, that we had a teen center where the bands were playing and stuff.
It was named by kids. I think Gary Tate named it Nowhere after the Nowhere song. Nowhere Man by the Beatles came out during that time. And I have a feeling that's where the idea came from, and it became the Nowhere.
And it was always the Nowhere, whether at 4th and Van Buren or 6th and Railroad, it was the Nowhere.
Charleston kids were very friendly to everybody that came in. We got them from Mattoon and all around central Illinois, everywhere, because there wasn't a lot of places to go at that point. So we had bands, all different kinds of bands. We had Lothar and the Hand People. We had the Olivers from Fort Wayne, who was very weird. Then we had a little group of junior high school kids called the REO Speedwagon, which came in. And they didn't like REO Speedwagon too well, so we only had them one time. They didn't click, because the band had to be friendly, especially to the young teen girls and so forth. And some of the other bands was the Artistics, a mature band that was really good. I just loved the Artistics. Jim Easter and those guys, they played the best music. Then my mom met Larry Lujak, the WLS DJ out at Eastern. So she helped Larry Lujak get through that. He had never done a live show and he was very nervous, and he was a major DJ on WLS in Chicago. She met him and became kind of like friends. But she met a band called The Mob that was from Chicago. They looked like the Blues Brothers movie. I just read about 2 or 3 weeks ago that band went back about just some short time later and turned into Chicago. We had Chicago, and I made the lights for them. So the Nowhere was doing great, but Bob Ruppel was so kind to my mom, but it was getting to the point where the traffic was getting really bad. She decided to move up to the north to another place, and we found a warehouse up in the north end, rented that out. So we had dances there, and it continued, but things started getting kind of wild a little bit in Charleston, it seemed like. So the Nowhere crowd started going down a little bit. So it all ended, and I didn't go back anymore.
After it had been closed for about a year, myself and 3 of my buddies were aspiring musicians looking for a place to rehearse. Somebody mentioned to us that the 6th and Railroad Nowhere, an old broomcorn building, was available. And our business model was nothing more than having a place for bands to rehearse, also develop new bands, and then secondarily was to have dances or concerts on Friday and Saturday nights. By March of 1970, we were ready to open, and we got the local band that were buddies of ours from Mattoon and Charleston named Moses, and got them to open. We had a great turnout. Well, it turns out that shortly thereafter, we were approached by a gentleman here in Charleston, and he approached us and said, hey, why don't we think about doing this? Let's develop the bands like you want to do and have these Friday and Saturday night gigs, but why don't we do a booking agency? Some of the bands that we developed around here, local bands, Butter, the Gutter Blues Band, which was a bunch of Charleston high school kids, basically. Moses, I mentioned, there was some confusion because we had another band from Champaign named Hound Dog Moses, that played soul-type music. Pythas Tribe, who were from Carbondale. It was a great experience for me working with all these guys.
Well, next year's the 50th anniversary when it all started. It started December 66.
So I guess in one aspect, we transitioned from a teen music scene to an adult music scene, but it's all a part of the Charleston music scene.
What an exciting night we're having in WEIU studio. We're so glad you're joining us for great stories. If you want a copy of this program tonight, don't wait any longer. Call the number at the bottom of your screen right now.
I have some thank yous to give out. Michael Beal-Fellet from Charleston. If I messed up your name, I apologize. Don Ghost from Mattoon. Kayla Baker from Charleston. Jeff Saunders, Rosie's cousin, one of our storytellers. Bonnie from Charleston, thank you so much. Jeff from Charleston, thank you, Jeff. Richard and Barbara Funk from Charleston. Cheryl Hawker from Charleston. Laura Hussey from Charleston. And I think I caught it up with everybody. So thank you so much.
That's wonderful news.
We're currently at 58, I believe. So we're wanting to get 80 calls.
We need.
Is that possible?
No, we want to get to 90.
No,
we want 40 calls right now. Math isn't our strong suit, but I'll tell you what. All we have to do is ask you to call, and these people back here will take care of that for us.
Yeah, so let's get the phones going. Right now, there's no one on the phone. We've got 8 phones. The number is on the bottom of your screen. If you are enjoying this program tonight, if you place a value, thank you. If you place a value on WEIU TV, being a public broadcaster, being a part of Charleston, being a part of Eastern, we need to hear from you now. We have had a great night so far, but we are just getting started. So right now, we need you to call. Rosie's on the phone. We've got all these people behind us that need you to call right now. Get up and call.
That's right. And I'll tell you why this is a super exciting night is because of you. When you call in, you are getting us so excited because that is a thank you to the people who took part in this program. And it is a thank you to WEIU being your public broadcaster. And we have some more people calling in right now, getting copies of those DVDs and a special book that we're offering tonight as well.
And a lot of people are calling saying, you know, how many can I get? Well, you can get 50 if you want them, but they're $75 for the first one, and after that, they're $60 a piece. So there's a lot of people that said, you know, I want 2, so that's $120.
That's wonderful.
$120 gift. So give us a call. Right now, we got some phones going. It looks like we've got 4 free. So let's get those 4 phones calls right now.
I'll tell you what, we've had a lot of people call in from out of town tonight because they're watching via online at WEIU.net. So if you have a social media account out there and you want to post and tell people that they can watch online and you can share Charleston that way, feel free to do that. And speaking of people who live out of town, I've got a guest that I'm going to ask come into the studio with us. I have Steve Thompson right here, and he's one of our storytellers with an out-of-town storyteller, and you have some comments to share tonight from him.
Yeah, as you've just seen, I talked about the Nowhere, my involvement in it toward its latter period, but a lot of credit goes to the Taylor family and Howard, who couldn't be here tonight because he lives in Mississippi, but I know you're watching, Howard, so round up your friends, tell them to call in, let's get some bucks here.
Thank you.
But, yeah, Howard, but nothing would have happened with that Nowhere Club if it hadn't have been for Howard's mother and father. And Red was always maniacal on stage. This morning I talked with, or messaged Howard and said, Howard, what do you want me to say? And he says, the Nowhere was done for the people, the kids, the community of Charleston and Mattoon, basically. And, you know, for Rhythm's Children was the band that his brother Red Taylor was in, and a very entertaining band. So Howard just wanted, and also the other thing that he wanted everybody to know, that he still claims fame for the best light show in Coles County. So he may be challenged on that at this stage of the game.
Well, I'll tell you what, we were very honored to have Howard as a part of the story, and we wanted to thank him so much. He drove all the way up from Mississippi to be a part of that. Now, you had one more comment that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I'd like to challenge everybody out there that's got servicemen and women overseas that are from the community. I challenge you. Christmas is coming up. It gets sort of lonely. I know when you're away from the family, this would be a great Christmas gift to give to your loved ones who are over there defending our country overseas or here in the United States too.
Thank you so much, Steve. We appreciate you being here tonight, and we thank you for that as well.
I enjoyed doing the story.
Thank you. Jana, back to you.
I'm here with Gina Bunch Epperson. She was one of our storytellers. And tell us a little bit more about your dad.
Gene Harpster was my dad, and he had several businesses in town, most well known for the gas company, Harpster's Coles County Gas, and the mobile home sales between Charleston and Mattoon, originally where Wendy's was in Charleston. So he was really quite the businessman in town and knew a lot of people, and I couldn't go anywhere. If people heard Harpster, oh, are you Gene's daughter? Yeah.
He was a Superman, and you also said he was a part of the Kiwanis as well.
Yeah, he was Kiwanis. All the men in the story that I am telling were part of the Kiwanis Club. That's how they knew each other. It wasn't Kiwanis sanctioned trip, but they all had a kinship, you know, and this adventure they went on and wanted to bring it back to Charleston.
Okay, anybody out there that you think needs to be calling, like what do you tell people?
Everybody needs to be calling, and if you aren't watching, you need to, if you're watching, tell everybody else to turn it on, because these are stories that they're from your heart, you know. You'll remember so many things when you're seeing it. So call everybody you know. Tell them to call in.
Thank you so much, Gina. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
I'll tell you what, we need those phones ringing right now. We've got 2 available. The number's at the bottom of your screen. You can call in right now, talk to one of these storytellers, tell them a comment about the show that you've enjoyed, something that you've learned. All you have to do is call right now. That cell phone is sitting right by you. We know you're sitting back enjoying the show tonight, so give us a call right now. The studio is full of excitement tonight. You can get a copy of the program for $75. You can get 2 copies for $120. Or you have the option at the $120 level to get a copy of a book that is all about Charleston and the history, as well as a copy of the program.
Right now we have 5 phones that are not ringing. So who's going to be the next person to support your local PBS station? If you're part of Charleston, if you've lived in Charleston, I don't care if it was 50 years ago or 80 years ago, if you're watching the program tonight and you do not have your very own copy of this program, you will be disappointed. We need somebody to call now. Right now, we're working our way up. I would like to give a shout out to Madonna Milner from Charleston. Thank you, Madonna, so much for calling in. We really appreciate that. We're getting over the 60 mark right now. We're trying to get to 90. So right now, let's get those phone calls coming.
I believe in you. I'll tell you what, our viewers have pulled through before. We know you're going to pull through tonight. We've got the power of public media right here in the studio tonight. It's going out the airwaves over cable, satellite, however you're receiving it, via online, and we know that you will make us meet our goal tonight. We need 40 more calls coming in. We have some thank yous.
Howard Taylor.
Woo! Howard! Calling from Mississippi.
All the way from Mississippi. Thank you, Howard. Mike Stanfield, first band class of Mr. Dom's from Charleston. So thank you very much, Mike. Mike's mom actually helped contribute to the fair story for us. Candace Allen, thank you so much. She's calling from Paris. Roger and Sue Songer, longtime Charleston folks, thank you so much. Ron Bales from Casey, he was in the music scene. He was in the music scene, definitely from Charleston. Thank you, Ron, so much. He loves music, and you know what? He's shown his support by calling. So right now, if you're out there and you've loved the programs that we've seen so far, give us a call. We don't want to leave you out. We're trying to get up to 90 callers right now, and I know that you're waiting right there. 2 minutes? We've only got 2 minutes before we go back to the program. Don't let this time go away. Come on, give us a call.
This is your opportunity right now. Don't wait any longer. We want to hear from you. Steve gave a shout out to the servicemen. Get those copies to send over the holidays. It does get lonely. They're serving our country. We're so proud of them, and we want to say thank you to them. And we want them to also hear about Charleston and be a part of it, whether they're here or far away. And we also have a few operators still standing by and some more thank yous as well.
Well, what I'm going to say now is we are getting so many people from out of state, and that is exciting because you know what? We had somebody call from Washington, D.C., San Antonio, Texas, Mississippi, and Las Vegas, for goodness sakes.
Wow. And Florida.
And Florida.
Yeah.
So we have gotten people that are watching all over the United States, and we are thrilled with that. Jane Gilbert, one of our storytellers. Thank you, Jane. You are a great storyteller, Jane Gilbert, and we love you so much. Thank you so much. Larry and Pat Beasley from Charleston, thank you. And Pam Ziegler from Camargo. We are up to 67 right now. We are
We're
needing
nearing that 90
Let's
mark,
get the
but we
phones
can only
going.
do it with you. Give us a call right now. The number's at the bottom of your screen. Go online if you want to, but we have to hear from you right now. Support Charleston, support the storytellers, support Eastern, support your community, and let's make this one night to remember.
You know, we've talked before, if WEIU, your public broadcaster, doesn't do a program like that, who's going to do it for you? And I can tell you, no one's going to do it. That's what we're here for. And when we did the shout out and said, Charleston people, what stories do you want to be known in your history? We've got people from Eastern doing stories. We got people from Charleston that have been doing stories. And people are excited about Charleston. And it is time we all get excited about Charleston because this is a great program.
I'll tell you what, I can almost not stand still because these phones keep ringing and I get so excited. I can't hardly contain myself because it makes this so important to the people who are taking your calls. They want to know that this is important. They took their time. They shared their tears, their laughter, their stories, their personal stories with the world tonight because this is being shared all across the world via online. You can be a part of this. You can get your copy tonight. You have to call right now.
There's 3 people right now that we need to get on the phone, and the phone number is on your bottom of your screen, and we need you to call, support this programming on WEIU TV. We love being here. We loved having our storytellers come out tonight. They gave up their time tonight too because they are interested in this program, and we're so proud of them.
We are very proud. And you know something that we're learning tonight? Our little slogan is watch, listen, and learn. And you can do all of that tonight, and you can share this with people all across the world too because you can get a copy for them and keep one for yourself.
After our premiere night the other night, we had some of the educators say, we need to have a copy of this for our school, for our classroom, and that's exciting too.
And I'll tell you what, I talked to Josh earlier, the little boy that had the hand drills. He's so cute. He wanted to be a part of this. A 6-year-old little boy, public broadcasting means that much to him. So if you have kids out there who learn from public broadcasting, who tune into PBS Kids, show us you appreciate that. You can do that by calling tonight. We have 3 operators who are available, so be sure to call in right now. The number's at the bottom of your screen. We're going to get back to the show. We have more stories to share. Charleston, this is your night. Let's celebrate.